At any rate, hey, welcome, Bryan. How are you doing today, my friend?
Man, I'm wonderful, magnificent, and great, man. I was fortunate to
He
wake
is
up on the right side of
wonderful,
the earth
magnificent, and great,
and great.
bundled all together, and this is what you get, Mr. Moneyman. Moneyman, king of leverage, get out the way, world. Here I come. When Bryan walks up to the ocean seas part the way for him. That
No,
that
man,
is
that was
that is
Moses.
that. Isn't that your nickname, Bryan Moses?
No, no, I can't
Brian.
take nothing from the
Oh,
prophets.
okay. We ain't going there. All right. Hey, welcome, Bryan. I appreciate your
Man,
time
thank you for
today.
having me.
And I ain't gonna lie to you. You already know every week. I'm always excited, to host these shows. And every week, I think we have a dynamic guest full of information, expertise, experience.
Yeah.
Just having a good time. And the more of these that I continue to do, the funner they get, the more I learn. And I don't mean to sound cliche, but I am stoked about having you on the show today and picking your little brain and having you share with the world your knowledge and the things that you've learned the hard way along the way to get to where you're at today. But
Right.
we ain't going straight down to business because that's not how we roll here on the Financial Happy Hour. How we roll is we start off with our drink. Oh, that reminds me. I oh no, not yet, not yet. We're
Oh,
not
that's
there yet.
it.
Now the first thing I got to do, got to change my background because we in happy hour mode here, and I need to get with the program. Let's do this one. That looks good. That's the one we're going to stick with. There you have it. All right, Bryan. I know I asked you your opinion on which drink should I partake of, and I gave you two options. You said the red and the blue, but I'm going to save that closer to Memorial Weekend, and we're going to go with the pink today. So today we're going to have Smirnoff Ice Smash Pink Lemonade, raspberry plus lemonade, 8%. That is going to be the happy hour cocktail today. How about you, Bryan? Now that you're
Oh,
home,
we're gonna have crown,
that's what
cramp,
I'm talking about.
apple.
That's what I'm talking about, man. I knew you would
Already.
pull through. Here, let me crack it open. All right, let's do the traditional suit. So, Bryan, cheers to a successful, educational, and super fun podcast today. All right, give me a second. I mean, it's not really a lot of flavor. Yeah. I mean, it's not bad, it's not great,
Righteous.
but it definitely don't taste no alcohol in it. It tastes like watered down lemonade. Watered down lemonade. I'm gonna have to get through the rest of this before I give you guys my assessment on whether or not I give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So, Bryan,
Yes,
tell us
sir.
a little bit about yourself. So, in a couple of minutes, if you could, on the personal side, just to share with briefly a little bit about your background, who you are, and leading up into the financial services industry, if you may.
Okay, well, I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I was born and raised. And I stayed there pretty much until I was about, I say about 19. Then I got in a little trouble and it caused me to go to the School of Hard Knocks for about 5 years. And then I graduated summa cum laude. And while I was in there, I learned and picked up the electrical trade, to be honest with you. And when I came home, that's all I pretty much did was build hospitals for 15 years here in Dallas.
Okay, so let's
And
stop there. So you picked up the electrical trade. How long
uh,
ago was that?
almost 20 years now. Yeah, about 20 years ago.
How long did you do that for?
15.
You did that for 15 years. Okay, carry
Yep,
on.
yep. Building hospitals here and stuff all around Dallas, Fort Worth area. I even did a casino up in Oklahoma. Did a casino up there as well. But right towards the end of my electrical career, I was seeing some things where I was building this Facebook data center that really was moving me because it was a lot of money. A lot of us don't really realize what it takes for people to be able to, like and share photos and all that stuff. They don't really know about the back end work. So we was building these facilities and it's called a data center, right? It's a very large data center. It was about ended up being about 9 buildings. Each building's about the size of a football field, and it went on for about 3 years though. Okay, this is a long job for an electrician. Typically, we can build a hospital from dirt to a whole operating building in 18 months. I'm
Wow.
talking about with NICU, uh, NICU, any type of cancer treatments, all of that, 18 months. So for me to be on a job for 3 years, it's a big job. And the amount of manpower that it would take to run that job and to understand when you up in management, you really get to know what's really going on. You get to see the numbers and all this type of stuff. I was making a very, very, very good salary. It's like 160. And I didn't pick up any tools. I was just in the back fixing problems. I was a problem solver, but just electrical. There's sometimes we have issues with the engineering of a building. They drew it one way, but we can't put it in this way, so we got to do some modifications. Living a lifestyle of that, I'm always thinking outside the box because nothing is ever as you see it when it comes to design and stuff and building stuff that people are gonna, occupy for years on out. So doing all of that right before I quit, I realized it was something I needed to do. Right, I was making good money, but I couldn't continue at that rate because it was going to require me to leave my family. Okay, and that means traveling because us as electricians, we can travel all over the world and make very, very good money. So for me to make that type of money right here in my backyard, it was a blessing. So when it came time to do something different, I had this idea in my mind, right? And that idea was an electrical safety device. So I began to get it out of my mind and hired somebody to help me to put it to what you say on paper, which would be conceptual, and get it patent pending. Okay, I started that. Then I also started taking trips down YouTube, learning about real estate. I figured if I'm gonna do something different, it gotta pay big, right? So I got to start listening to real estate, and I did that for 6 months. Rusty, my commute in the morning to go to work was about an hour. Okay, in the evening time, at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how bad Dallas traffic is. Don't let the weather be bad. It took me 4 hours to get home one time. I'm just trying to give you how much downtime that I have. So I'm up early, 3 o'clock in the morning, heading to work because I don't like to be late. Okay, I'm gonna be the first one on the job, even if I'm not running the job. I'll sleep in my car until it's time to check in. Okay, so that's just a work ethic I always had. But in that downtime, I started to replace it with content, especially about content that I was interested in, which was real estate at the time. And about 9 months of doing that, the person that I was listening to on YouTube, he offered me an opportunity to work with him as a mentorship program. Now, the whole time I was listening to him on YouTube, he wasn't selling anything. He was just giving value content, valuable information.
What kind of
But when it
valuable
came
information are we talking about here?
real estate, just real estate,
Just
on
real
how
estate.
he's
Go with
able
that.
to, as an investor, to be able to buy and acquire real estate without using a bank. Okay. So when he reached out to me to see if, you know, I wanted to join his mentorship, I was like, yeah, I really, value the information he give. I would love to work with the guy. And he lived out of Florida and he was trying to take what he did in Florida and he wanted to take it to other states. So I signed up. And then when it come time to talk money, it was the mentorship was $30,000, man.
Wait, whoa. So 30 grand. Hold on a second.
Yes.
If y'all just, if you, that was not a speed show, texto, typo, that was not a speed show. He's talking about to have this mentor, the cost of this mentorship was $30,000. Carry on.
Now this was the deal. Okay, now for that $30,000,
Hey, wait. The king of leverage. The camera's here. King of
yeah.
leverage, guys. Pay attention here. He's telling a story. Have a pen and paper. Take notes. This is what I'm talking about. This is just a
All
little
right.
sliver.
Now, when he called me, well, when his agent called me, the first question was, he said, Brian, how much money do you want to make? You know what? And I was like, damn, you know what? I didn't even think about that part. I just know I wanted to make some money, right? So I said, well, shit, I got to at least replace my income. So I'm going to need at least 160 a year. He said, 160 a year? He said, what do you do for a living? So I explained to him that I was a badass electrician. He was like, okay, I can see that. He said, well, it's going to cost you $30,000. And I was like, dang, $30,000. I said, dang, you gonna take me out to eat first? You know what I mean? You just get straight to it. Huh? He was like, well, we're not here to play
Do I
any
even at least
games.
get some roses? Wine, a bottle of
Right,
wine, something.
but he's like, hey, we ain't here to play no games. Do you value the information this man got? And do you wanna, make that? And I'm like, yeah. I said, but I don't have that money. He said, well, do you own a home? And I'm like, yeah, I do. He said, well, how long have you been in your home? I said, almost 2 years. He said, okay. He said, well, how did you buy your home, Bryan? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, did you pay cash? I was like, no, I didn't pay no cash. He said, how much was the house? I was like, about 240,000. He said, well, how did you get it? I said, I used credit. And he was like, okay, so yeah, how you think you're gonna pay for this course? I mean, this mentorship. And I'm like, I don't have $30,000 in credit. He's like, yes, you do. You just don't know you do. And I'm like, what? Because at this time I wasn't in the credit. I was just working, I had a decent credit score. I didn't really use it. I paid cash for everything. But it was decent. And I had previously let somebody, I co-signed on somebody's house about 2, 3 years prior to that. I didn't even think about that, but that made my credit score look really good because it was already a property in my name. So when he brought that back to my attention, he was like, well, look, if I can get you the money, he said, would you spend it? And I'm like, yeah, because my mom like, he ain't finna give me this money. I don't know about how you gonna give me $30,000.
So I
So
gotta
what
stop you in the middle of this story, and I gotta ask: were you really entertained? I mean, obviously you were, because you did end up getting the 30,000. I don't want to steal your thunder, but you got the money and you did invest. What made you? What? Where did? How did you see any kind of a value with the return on investment? $30,000. I mean, what prompted you to buy into? Hey, if I invest, I'm going to get more than that back in return.
because I was at that point I understood that the typical transactions that we were doing, what I would be doing in real estate, wasn't gonna be nothing on the average. It was gonna be, let's say you have wholesalers. Wholesalers can get a contract just to a piece of paper for nothing and then turn around and make something off the spread when they flip it to somebody else. See, I already knew about that. So me seeing 30,000, that was easy. I knew I could make that back in one transaction.
Okay.
Okay. Now the fact that it cost me 30,000, that was just, the mentorship, but he ended up getting me about over $70,000 in credit cards. And that's what I was building up to, is the fact that he was able to get them cards, and that blew my mind because he did it right there while we was on the phone. I mean, on the Zoom call. And it's a trick. Now I know what he did, but at the time I didn't know what he did. He just did what's called card stacking, where they just apply your name, open a bunch of tabs, and they apply for a bunch of different credit cards.
Okay.
And then
I
once
heard
you
what
get
you said. You called it what? Card stacking?
card
Card
stacking.
stacking, folks.
Mhm.
CARD, card stacking. Go ahead.
So they have over 70,000 in credit cards. And of course, I charged almost half of them for his services. And then the rest of the money I used to actually start my business, okay, which is real estate investing, Stand Strong Investments. And that was a whole beast in itself. Okay, so for the next 6 months, it was just pure hell. Now, keep in mind, I'm still working at the time. So I'm doing this part time and still running a multi-million-dollar operation. Okay. When I tell you, electrical is safe, I'm responsible for people's lives. So that's a whole nother issue within itself. So doing that at the same time, learning this information, it was just pure hell. I was so confused sometimes I didn't know who I was, because what my mentor at the time was teaching me was how to wear all the hats at the table. Okay. And it's documented that I've purchased property and I sat on both sides of the table, literally. I was the buyer and the seller. That's just how thorough it can get. And without using a bank. And then there was other people involved that was buying property and selling it to me and transferring it as well. But it's very detailed. And I was able to grasp that information. And then about 6 months later, using marketing strategies, because this is where I'm trying this all. Here it is. I'm building a data center. Then I'm learning about real estate. And my mentor who's teaching me about real estate, he's harping on the fact of using technology to find my buyers. So I'm not knocking on doors. I'm not calling. All I'm doing is running ads. At the time, it was Google Ads. Okay. Now, this is the power of ads and having technology. So while I'm not, I'm chilling with my family, I get a phone call from a lady, and she's seen my ad, and has a property. Now, this property was $230,000
I stop you real quick.
worth.
So You did the card stacking. You came up with $70,000 worth of credit card that you could leverage, and that's what you
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
He helped you to create that that credit, that line of credit.
He
You
helped me
took 30
acquire
of
it.
that. What's that?
Acquire it. He helped me acquire it.
Acquire it. You took 30 of that $70,000 you invested into this mentor program. This was around what month of what year?
This is around May of 2019. Yeah, it all started about
2019.
May of 2019.
6 short years ago.
Yeah,
So you
and
started
by
working with him May of 2019. That's when you started working with him. And then
mhm,
from there, how many months before you
the
were able
first
to,
deal, by
yep,
November of that same year, I got closed. Now I've had a lot of stuff come through, but nothing really closed. But this one that actually closed was around November of that same year, 2019, and it was a lady that was she's a motivated seller, is what we call it. She had a home. The home was causing her some pain. Okay. Pain meaning she wanted gone. Whatever she needed to do, she wanted it gone, but she didn't want it to affect her credit. So I told her, I said, well, hey, I'll give you $6,000 if you just move out. I'll take over the note, and then give me a couple years and I'll buy it. I'll pay it off. I'll pay off your mortgage. And then she was like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, ma'am. Now, keep in mind, she called me. I didn't call her. She called me from a Google ad. Okay. And she actually happened to be riding through my zip code because my Google ads only run in my zip code. It don't run anywhere else in the state, just my zip code. Okay. So she didn't even live in my zip code. She was in the car with her daughter. I'm just trying to show you how powerful this technology is. She was in the car with her daughter and they was driving through my zip code. At the time she was driving through my zip code, she got on her cell phone and she typed in two words. We call these keyword search terms. And
yep.
it was real estate an investor. And my ad pop up because I pay Google a certain amount of money for me to show up when people type these words together. I want to show up on the front page. Okay. That's how that marketing goes on the back end on Google. So boom, she called me now. Here it is, $235,000 piece of property that I'm about to acquire for $6,000 on a credit card. Okay. Once I acquired the property, okay, we signed it over. Now she did have a question. She was like, how do I know that you're not gonna, screw me and mess up my credit? I said, well, ma'am, I said, I'm not in the business to, paying people to mess up their credit. However, I'm giving you 6,000, your property's worth 230,000. It's gonna be in my best interest to take care of that note. I said, or else I'm gonna be throwing $6,000 out the window. So she was like, okay, cool, let's go. So she signed property over to me. Now there was a little bit more in the background. I'm not going to disclose. It's just too much detail, but I was able to acquire the property with it still being in her name and able to sell it to someone else the same day, basically, because within 24 hours I had a buyer. The buyer was going to purchase that $230,000 property from me with $26,000 down as a down payment and $2,100 a month for the next 30 years. Okay. Now, no bank is involved. I don't do no credit checks. We don't need no credit checks. The only thing I need to know is you was employed, you have solid work history, and you have the income. That's all I care about. So they was able to pay me 26,000 as a down payment. Now they become a homeowner, okay? But they're responsible for everything. I'm not a landlord. You're not calling me about no toilet issues. No, that's all your problems, okay? You pay me 26,000 down and 2,100 a month, and you have to get your own insurance. You can't even have no mail sent to the house. You got to get your own PO box until you pay the home off because it's still technically my property. It's just you didn't have to go through no bank typical processes everybody else got. So I get to make the rules because I'm the bank, because I own the
Why would
property.
people do that? Why would people make that kind of an arrangement as a
Because
buyer?
you have a lot of people that are heavy cash, okay? They have jacked up credit. You're talking about attorneys, doctors, and all these types of folks, okay? They have a lot of cash. Credit
You're
might be
saying they're
jacked up.
out there, there's more of them than what we
Oh,
realize.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, the property sold in less than 24 hours. And I didn't even, it's not sold on the MLS and nothing like that. I posted an ad on Craigslist. That's just how quick it sold. But somebody lived in that area, had been looking for a home. They was a blue collar carpenter, so they had the cash, and it was actually more affordable when they was actually currently living in that area. I hadn't even seen the house before I had a buyer was selling it. I hadn't even seen the property besides on Google because it was like an hour and a half away from me. Okay, so Everybody was happy. The lady that sold me the property was happy. She understood what was going on. The person buying the property, he understood that my name wasn't on the property. He understood it was somebody else's name. He understood the position he was in. Everybody was happy. And to this day, that same property has cash flowed $2,100 every month, like clockwork. Not to mention when the equity increased and we do a cash out refinance and pull equity out of the home, over $150,000. So that little $30,000 is paid for itself, but it's just what came with that. It wasn't just the 30,000. You know, there was some sleepless nights. You know, there was a lot of money blew on leads that didn't end nowhere. There was a lot of money spent on inspections and appraisals that didn't go nowhere. You know what I mean? A lot of money spent on ads that didn't go nowhere. But
So in
it
other
only
words, it
takes
wasn't
that
as
one,
easy as what people thought, but at the same
right?
time, is it worth the reward? I think we know the answer to that, but it does take a lot of effort. Like you said, a lot of sleepless nights. You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be some stress and anxiety that's going to come along with it. But welcome to the world of entrepreneurialism, right?
There you
You
go.
know, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yep. Yep. And this is fortunate. I was still working at the time, but right after, you know, that first deal quit, I quit. I said, I'm good. Yep. I'm good. And that was right before 2020 hit. Now, check this out. So when 2020 hit, I was also still, you know, researching other ways to make some money. So I got into the concept of short-term rentals as well. And I was able to secure two apartments in a 32 unit building. I was able to secure two units in there through my business and offer them as a corporate leasing agent to help traveling nurses. Okay, now it wasn't traveling nurses at first. I just switched it to traveling nurses when COVID hit because I was conveniently located between six hospitals here in Dallas. So I switched it to traveling nurses and started marketing the traveling nurses. So by the time when after COVID had hit, I was able to pivot. Now I don't know how much you know about Airbnb, but on Airbnb around 2020, you know, people has been on there getting money for a long time. You know, I had joined groups on Facebooks of people that, you know, was part of these groups that's all they did. And you could see people getting money. I mean, they was getting a lot of money. When COVID hit, those same people I was seeing crying, you know, the world was ending type stuff. They over leveraged, didn't have no cushion, and now Airbnb took all their money because what the Airbnb hosts get to do, they get to get their money early because people plan ahead,
Right.
right? And because they, especially when they traveling in groups, where you got people with 5, 6 bedroom homes, you know, and then all of a sudden their calendars for the next 6 months just goes blank, all the money's gone. Oh man. But I was able to pivot because those people that got screwed up like that, they were solely dependent on Airbnb to pay them. I didn't come in the game like that. I came in where I could collect money myself directly, which is called direct bookings. So I was able to make a pivot and I went from 2 units to 16 units in about 9 months, man. And I was able to float through COVID and make about $300,000. And it was hard. It was rough. Some nights I was giving people units for $25 a night, man, just because I needed to get a body in there, you know. And it was quite an experience. And then right around 2021 hit, things got better. And boy, I tell you, I went from 300,000 to like 1.2 million damn near overnight because the rates shot up, shot right back up. Then you had people was traveling now, so I went and leveraged my credit again. And I seen that I was watching news one day, and heard where Hertz had filed for bankruptcy during COVID, and they had all those cars, so they had to sell off all the cars, right? Well, by them selling off, it was like 1 million cars they had to sell off. That created a deficit in car rentals when they opened up the gates and people could start traveling again. So I positioned myself again, and I went and got 9 brand new cars with no money down. Okay, 9. Now that's a whole nother story how I did that, but I understood credit so well that I was able to leverage that, and I had a personal banker who gave me some inside information on how. So I had multiple businesses this time. I didn't share that. I had about 4 other businesses that I had started simultaneously. So I had the real estate business, I had the short-term rental business, then I started a car rental business. Then I had a credit business going. Okay. So with that credit business, I was really leveraging the hell out of my credit. That's why I was able to get the cars and then put the cars up for rent, use the cars for my Airbnb guests, And about a year later, we was able to generate another 100,000 just off cars. Okay, so cars was doing good. The Airbnb is doing good. Now I'm trying to buy the apartment complex. They give me a price for the apartment complex, $2.8 million. The property was only valued at 2.6 million. Half of that 2.6 million was my money. And how was that with my money? Because I was the biggest breadwinner in the whole 32 units. I had 16 of them. The amount of money that I was paying 26,000 a month in rent. Okay. But I was generating I was generating average 60 to 80,000 just on cash flow a month through those units that we were doing. So the owners, they were cool with it because they were cool with it. But when I got too big and tried to buy the building and they thought they were going to be able to screw over me and it didn't go that way, well, they didn't want to sell. And it kind of soured our relationship. So I felt some type of way. And about 8 months after that deal went to hell, they had a foreign investor come through and want to buy the building. Now, foreign people, their money's a little different, so they didn't mind paying over what it was valued at. So when they went to look into the details of the apartment, they seen my business in there 16 times because it's called the rent roll. Whenever you buy commercial buildings or apartments, you can go see who's paying and who's not paying. So they see my business coming. They're like, who is this guy? And they was like, why does he have 16 units? This is a problem. This is a high problem because it's too much of a liability if I don't pay him. So they was like, can we meet with him? They was like, yeah, we'll reach out to him. So I agreed to meet with the guy. We talked. I explained to him what I was doing. They were more blew away than anything. They were just, how in the hell are you doing this by yourself? Because I was pretty much by myself. I had a cleaning crew, but they sometimes I have to fire them too. But it was quite an adventure. They respected it and they was like, look, we'll buy this building and we'll let you keep running your business, but we'll ask you one thing. Can we buy it from you or at least allow you to sell them off to individual people to do what you do? And the first part, they was going to try to buy it. We went in about 2 months and they started seeing how it was just too much for them to handle. So they was like, no, just we'll let you sell your units off to individual people who want to do what you do. We just don't want one person having all these units. So I was able to sell off each one of my units without even owning the property. So I had 10 one bedrooms. Each one bedroom sold for $12,000. Then I had 4 studios. Each one of the studios sold for 8,000. Then I had a 3 bedroom that I sold for 15,000, and then I had a 2 bedroom that I sold for 14,000. Okay. Now each one of these units came with paying tenants already. Everybody had a 3 month contract at least. They had to sign a 3 month contract with me to get in my space. But most of them, like I say, was nurses, traveling nurses, or I had a couple pilots and some stewardess too. But that's just how things was taken off for me from just leveraging my credit and
And
knowing what to do.
this all really started with that $30,000 initial investment, working with a mentor that would take you
Mm-hmm.
under his wing and
Yep.
show you the ropes of real estate and the power
Mm-hmm.
of leveraging. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep. And I have been addicted to it ever since, and I ain't stopped. It went to some point where I started, after I've acquired all this information and experience, I went from leveraging credit to leveraging experience. Then
How do
when
you
you
mean?
leverage experience through sharing your experience with people, they'll pay you even more. And you don't
Right.
really have to go anywhere.
So
So,
what kind of experience and knowledge are you sharing, and what do you charge for something like that if somebody were to approach you and say, "Hey, listen, I saw you on Rusty's show and I want to learn, I want to know what you know. How does that work and what do you charge?"
well, now I offer mentorship on various areas of my life of experience that I have, whether it's business, construction, credit, uh, leveraging, what is the other part of trust, even litigations. You know, I've been very litigious here lately. I had got to reading and studying law. Then I learned some very interesting things, especially when it comes to mortgages, mortgage fraud, even car transactions was fraud. And I had sued Wells Fargo a few years ago. And this is going on while I got all these businesses going and stuff going on because I started reading more and I got all these cars and I'm just started reading these fine print of all these contracts and it was just stuff that wasn't sitting right with me. So I ended up suing Wells Fargo on two of the vehicles. Okay. One was in my name, one was in my wife's name. But when the lawsuit hit, and my wife, she didn't really want to fight with him, so she just wanted to get a car back. But I sued him because I after I read and I knew I was right, I sued him, and they took me from civil court to federal court. I never forget this because I thought I had it figured out in civil court. But when they took it to federal court, that was a whole new ball game. So I had to go back to the drawing board and figure some stuff out. But lo and behold, I figured some stuff out. And when I was able to communicate with the attorney, she ended up settling. And they made me sign a non-disclosure and they cut me a check. Okay. so
Winning.
so that took a whole other spill. So we started to go to, more extent of really pushing the issue and teaching others how to push the issue because man, you'd be surprised that there's some of the simplest things that we were taught or have been conditioned to believe, it ain't what that is. Especially when you really start digging into financial services. And
Let's talk about that.
I would strongly suggest your viewers to go check out the movie called The Big Short. If they could get a book called Clouded Titles. Okay, The Big Short, Clouded Titles. They're gonna talk specifically around what happened in 2008 with the stock market, the financial world, even the mortgage bust. Okay, and that stuff hasn't changed. It's still going on. All right, it is still going on to this day. And if the consumers really knew what was going on, man, one of the presidents said it would be a revolution overnight. Okay, but just know that today, with all the stuff I have been doing, even the litigation stuff, the last financial thing that I really came across that just solved everything, and I wish I had in the beginning, especially when I'm spending that 30,000, is the financial shield.
Oh,
Okay.
let's talk about that. Now, let's not give them too much because if they want to learn everything about it, then they got to tune
Right.
in to the webinar at 6 o'clock
Yeah.
next Tuesday. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but let's talk a little bit about the financial shield. I mean, because look, if I just plugged into this thing at the very beginning and I heard what you just shared leading up to this point, I'd be like, I mean, my head's spinning right now, and I've spoken to you multiple times. And every time I do speak with you and I hear about your story, what you've accomplished, how you've done it, my head still spins. I still try to wrap my head around, first of all, how you were able to play all these different instruments
That
simultaneously. That's
that
one thing.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
part. I don't know, man. When I hit around close to 40, something in my brain was I just been on a quest. I just be looking for challenges. You know, it's just looking for something to solve, and that's what has been going on. And I just been documenting it and sharing it with others because if I'm thinking like this, I can't be the only one thinking like there got to be somebody else, and then I will be hearing things and on YouTube, of course, and it's like that can't be true. Well, let me go research it myself and figure it out type stuff, right? But when it came to that financial shield at this point, I've leveraged credit so much. I've done so many amazing things with credit and know how to do so many amazing things with credit. That's on a lower scale. But when we start talking about insurance contracts that are properly structured, they can do more than just provide a death benefit. That's a whole nother level. And here recently, just being prepared and being positioned, I'm gonna give you an example. Last year, I had a $20 hose up under my sink in my uh, upstairs bathroom. Okay, somebody had used the bathroom that morning. I guess was last time pressure was put on that little pipe, and they cut it off. Went on about their business, but the pipe had busted. All right, now that water was flowing for at least 3 hours before
Oh,
people
God.
begin to wake up and hear, like, well, where's that water coming from? And that $20 pipe caused about $30,000 worth of damage. All
Ooh.
right. Now, insurance, we have insurance on our home, right? For these types of situations. This is what we pay for it, folks. So it's time to get a check to get these repairs done. Now, the $30,000 come. The average person would take their $30,000 to start, getting their stuff repaired, right? Well, since I already had the financial shield, I took the $30,000 and I deposited into my insurance policy as a premium payment. Okay, so that paid me up for most of the year. The beautiful thing about the way my policy is structured, I can just let the money sit there for at least 30 days and then start making withdrawals against it. All right. So in whole, I never remove any of my money out my policy. It's still sitting there. The 30,000 is still there. But what really happens is the bank gave me a loan. I'm not the bank. I'm sorry, the insurance company They gave me a loan against it. They gave me their money because they want my money to stay over here. Because they already promised me every dollar that I give them, they're going to pay me at least 3% interest, compounded
So
annually.
let's stop. Let's translate this into a way that people will understand. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of paying the contractor the 30 grand, you took that
Mm-hmm.
30 grand and you put it in your own bank,
There you go.
the
Yeah.
bank of Aromaye, right? Am I saying
There
that
you
right?
go.
Aromaye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then to pay the contractor, you went to your bank and you borrowed 30 grand, but it's
Well,
not
no.
borrowing your
Mm-mm.
money.
No,
It's
I didn't go to my bank. I went to my carrier, my insurance
that
policy carrier.
no, you didn't. I'm trying to translate this. I
Okay,
got you.
gotcha.
I got you.
Gotcha.
I
All right,
got you.
all right.
I'm going to be explaining this next week.
Yeah, gotcha,
But I'm
gotcha.
trying to translate this in a way to where people understand the analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he deposited 30 grand in his own bank account, the Bank of Aramaya. Then he went to the Bank of Aramaya. He said, "Hey, I don't want to touch that 30,000, but I want to borrow 30 grand from the carrier." So it's like the Bank of Aramaya, but you're using the Bank of Aramaya's money, not what's deposited in there. And
Mm-hmm.
you're pulling a loan off of that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
pick it up from there.
All right, now with taking that loan out, all right, that leaves my money to continue to grow in that account uninterrupted.
But Brian,
And
don't you owe interest off the money you borrowed?
well, I'm making compound interest. See, they only charge us simple interest. When you deal with financial institutions, everything is based on simple
Compound
interest.
simple. What? You
Yeah,
need to explain
yeah.
it for the people who are still in preschool. What is drawn compound interest and what is drawn simple interest and what is compound and what is simple?
Well, I don't want to
We're
go
trying to
over their
educate
heads too
people.
much.
All right.
Compound grows a whole lot faster. And I'm going to let them do their homework to go
There you
Google it
go.
because you got technology right there. And
Yep.
it can give you visuals and explain it far better than I can through this Zoom. So you're going to go to Chat GPT or Complexity, whatever platform you like. You're going to type in what is the difference between simple and compound interest over time. Okay, you can do 5 years, 3 years, whatever floats your boat, but you're going to see that it grows faster. Matter of fact, to give you a very good analogy, if you took one penny and you compound it daily for 30 days, at the end of 30 days, you
Hold
would
on.
have
Hold
five.
on. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to let everybody guess. So, for those who are watching, if you don't already know the answer to this, what's your answer? So, if you took one penny, started with one penny, and day two you double, that's 2 cents, and day three it's 4 cents. How much money do you have on the 30th day? I'm going to give 15 seconds here.
You have the Jeopardy.
On the 30th day.
You have the Jeopardy song melody to play.
Well, I'm multitasking here. Multitasking. What is the answer? Hold on. No, so the people who are watching at this moment, they already know the answer to that. But I'm going to pull it up on the screen because seeing is believing. Because I make this a part of my education when I meet with people for the very first time. And nobody has really ever given me a number north of $100,000. And they're way off. The real answer is right there. He said five, and then I cut Brian off, but the real answer is 5,368,709.12. And there's the breakdown: 2 cents, 4 cents, 8, 16. Now, check this out. This is another point of information that I like to explain and educate people on. 10 days into it, you only got $5. You look at 20 days, you got 5 grand. Okay, 5 grand, but you're already three-quarters of the way there. Here's my point, and to Brian's point, the magic happens in the last 4 days. And the fourth day, you got 671,000. In the 27th day or the 28th day, 1.3 million. And the 29th day, 2.6 million. And then in the 30th day, in the last hour, you got over $5 million. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of compounding. Now, one more thing while we're at it here. One of my favorite quotes. I'm a quote guy, and and I do Albert Einstein's quote where he says, uh, compounding,
The
compound
power
interest.
of compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who
That's right.
understands it
Compound interest is the
will
eighth
benefit
wonder
from
of the
it.
world.
He who does it will pay it.
That's right. He who understands it
I
earns
got
it,
it memorized.
and he who doesn't pays it because it's true.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful.
But here's another thing. I'm take this. I don't mean to, take the microphone away from you because you're doing
Take it.
a fine job so far right now, Brian. But it's like what I posted earlier that what you know, you make money. What you don't know costs you money. And I don't know, maybe I be picking up Rich Dad Poor Dad for the second time in 10 years. I read the book for the first time around 2014. It was around 2014 is when I read that book. And something compelled me to 3 months ago to pick that book up again. And so I went down to my library, found the book, picked it up, and I read past the introduction. I'm like, I need to read this again. So I read it again and I finished it here recently. And guys, it all boils down to one thing: education. The rich beget the rich because they understand financial literacy. They understand financial education. They understand study how money works and what a real asset is versus what the rest of the world believes what an asset is or how they define it. And the poor beget the poor. And it has nothing to do with opportunity. Look, I mean, I'm a white guy, Brian's a black guy, and guess what? He's doing pretty well. And he rose from the ashes. We didn't talk about his past, but he said, I went to the school of hard knocks. I'll let y'all figure it out. And look at where this man is today in his life. You know why? Because he understands effort, relentlessly focused, discipline, accountability, all these things, but education. He's educated. And he never gets content or complacent. As a matter of fact, the more successful he becomes, the hungrier he gets. And that's why he is my partner right here, ladies and gentlemen, because iron sharpens iron. When I work with Brian, man, he raises that bar with me. And I'm like, that son of a, he can do it. I can. So the point is that it doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter where you grew up. It doesn't matter what your current situation. None of those things matter. That's up here. Okay. But if you dig deep, you're hungry, and you surround yourself with people like Brian and John and Victor and Darwin and the people that I've previously had on here, and you surround yourself with people who are sharp and you can learn from, and they're going to encourage you and push you and motivate you. That's how you win in life, ladies and gentlemen. It all starts with education. From there, you got to put it in action. That's the recipe. Education, put it in action, but you got to continue to educate. One more thing here, and then I'll let you get back to where you were. If you were moved to a brand new area, you relocated from North Carolina to, say, St. Louis, and now, you're in search of a new primary care physician. You need a new doctor. And so you're searching around, and you find one that's right down the street. Guy's 62 years old. He practices about 15 hours a week. He's only in the office Tuesdays and Thursdays. He's kind of on the verge of retiring. He doesn't believe in continuing education and, seminars. And man, I've been doing this for 30 years, even though technology, information, practices, medication, things like that changes daily. Would you rather choose that doctor, or would you rather work with a doctor who practices daily, 50 hours, 60 hours a week? That is their life. That is their bread and butter. And that is all they do for a living. They are hyper-focused and relentless in that. I think we know the answer to that. You would not choose the part-time doctor. You would choose the doctor who's practicing every day and constantly staying up to date on the latest technology, practices, procedures, things of that nature. And it's all about education, guys. The day that we as people stop growing personally and professionally, that's the day that you die. Because you ain't living no more. It's done. That's what the premise of this show is all about, ladies and gentlemen, is to teach you. Now, what you do with the information, that's up to you. But I'm doing my part. Brian, he's investing an hour. This guy's pulled in 50,000 different directions. But he's donating an hour, not for me. He's doing it for you guys to teach you all a few things. And to me, the biggest lesson is knowing this guy and where he's come from and where he's at today, and he's just getting started. I mean, he's just getting started. And if that don't motivate you and kick you in the you know what, to get off your you know what and get the freaking WORK and make something of your life, that's on you. All right, I think I'm getting off my soapbox here. So carry on, Brian. I'm not sure where I took a hard
So
right.
so yeah, so in my bank, when I put funds in my personal
Oh yeah, we were
private
talking about
banking,
the financial shield,
but
weren't we?
yeah, yeah, we was on the financial shit. That compound interest took you
That's right.
left field, but it's
Glad
all
you
right.
brought me
I'll
back to
bring you
the.
back.
I
I'll bring you
appreciate it. You
back.
got my back too. So
So by me being able to deposit that, be in a position, have the foundation, the knowledge and understanding of knowing what to do with that money, knowing that that is going to be an expense, but knowing where to put that money before I go spend it so that I can get a benefit from it. The benefit is 3% annually. It's going to be compounded annually for the rest of my life. Okay. Just that one transaction. That's a beautiful feeling. That's a beautiful position to have. Not only that, but at the same time, that those funds was guaranteeing a death benefit and a living benefit. Okay. So most importantly, I know how powerful this is. So I'll be so excited to share and help other people because after all the things I have experienced and all the business ventures I've been on, this is by far the easiest way I've ever made money. It wasn't just labor intensive or anything else, but at the same time, this money's tax free. So it's just like, man, what? It's a no brainer. So to be able
and
to
it's
help others,
basically it's just an alternate way, another one of the million ways where you can leverage money, and that's really what the
yeah,
banking system is. You're just leveraging money.
that's it.
You're doing two extra steps every single month, and you're not leveraging it one way. You're leveraging it two ways. So both ways that you're leveraging money, both ways, you're winning.
Yeah,
Now we're not going to tell you the secret. We're not going to give you the secret sauce on how this works, right? But
not
just
yet.
know where you're leveraging one way, you're winning. You're coming out ahead. When you leverage another way, guess what? You're winning. You're coming out ahead because you're racking up all kinds of points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, you're reversing this thing called arbitrage to where now because you own your own bank, you own that positive arbitrage where you're going to come out ahead on both aspects and that compounding interest passive income. So living benefits, what the hell is a living benefit? What do you mean by that?
A living benefit is a benefit you get to utilize while you're living. Okay, such as you may have an accident, get in a car accident or something, right? And let's say you're not able to go to work for at least 90 days. Well, typically people try to depend on what's called unemployment until they learn that unemployment isn't 100% of what you were making, right? So now you're short. You already had bills and expenses. Now it went up because you're out of work and you don't have the inflow of income like you needed. Well, with our policies that we have, you have the option that has these what we call riders. One of the riders allows you to cash in or liquidate a portion of your policy for as long as you're out of work. Okay. That's something that's unheard of in the work industry. It's just, I haven't been in it that long, but anybody that I talk to's never heard of it. So being able to have that living benefit, right? Then let's say you may be diagnosed with cancer, right? And you need treatment to get better. Well, having this type of policy allows you to use this money for that while you're alive to keep you living, which is another benefit, right? So these are the perks that we're talking about of living benefits, the benefit that we can utilize while we're alive versus when we're dead.
So if I went and opened up an account at Bank of America and I want to take advantage of the high yield savings account that they're offering at 3%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to open up this account, it's a minimum deposit of 5 grand. So I
Mm-hmm.
put that minimum deposit of 5 grand into Bank of America. 1 month later, I have a massive heart attack. I find out I'm diagnosed with cancer. It's in stage two. I have a stroke. I mean, there are 16 triggers, any of
Mm-hmm.
those. Yeah, how much is your bank account at Bank of America that you put an initial deposit of $5,000 going to pay you in the event of one of those events occurring? Nothing. Now you can liquidate the $5,000 because you're probably going to need it because you ain't going to be able to work for a certain period of time. You just had a heart attack. I don't think you're going to be on the job the next day. You just found out you have stage 2 cancer and it's spreading. You got this thing called cancer brain. What that means is that you can't make decisions. Half the time you don't even know what the hell happened yesterday. I interviewed some neighbors not too long ago where this gentleman had bladder cancer. And I was asking him when I met with him and his wife, and basically it was an interview. And I said, can you kind of take me back to 2023? And, when you first found out you were diagnosed with cancer, what were your initial thoughts and reactions, and how did you handle that for the first couple of months? And he's like, I really don't remember anything about that year. He said, that year, it's kind of like a blank. I don't remember. Point is, you can't work when you're going through all kinds of, radiation and chemotherapy and in and out of doctor's appointments and MRIs and test results and traveling to different states where they want you to say, hey, you need to go see this doctor, this treatment. And how much are you going to receive with your current bank account? How much is your current life insurance policy going to pay you when these things happen? How much is your investment account, your 401k, your 403b, your 457? How much is that going to pay you? Nothing. Did you guys know that the number one most common source that people use for emergency funds is their 401k, which comes with a penalty? So, would you rather use your money, the money that you saved up, you've been investing, and for, many, many years down the road when you don't want to work anymore, would you rather use that money? Or would you rather use somebody else's money that's going to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars, tax-free, more times than not, one lump sum to get you through those hard times? You guys take it. That's what Bryan is talking about here with living benefits on just the bank concept alone. These are a real thing. So you start your own bank and you start running bills and expenses through that. You start your bank with a nominal deposit of $250, and then 1 month later you find out you got cancer. Depending on, the size of the bank that we're doing here, you probably get at least $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 like that. And you ain't got to pay it back. You ain't got to pay taxes on it. Tell me, am I wrong?
Am I 100% correct? Nope. Not at all.
Right. I do not know where this hour went. So
snap it is.
I know, man. I know. So it feels like we just got started.
I know, right?
All right. So we're going to go 2 hours today. No, I'm just kidding with you. So I really can't believe how fast this hour just blew by, man. Yeah. So I guess I got to lead with my final question, the same question that I ask every guest that I have on, which is, Bryan, if you had the most important message that you wanted to announce to the world, you're on top of the earth, you have the largest megaphone in the history of mankind, and you had 1 minute to shout this message that you feel that everybody needs to know about, what would that message be?
Be intentional and be deliberate.
Still got 55 seconds
left. That's it. Life's too short to waste time. Okay. So you have to maximize every second. So you have to be intentional and deliberate, or else you're wasting your fucking time. That is the most valuable thing we have.
Did not hold back on that one. Hey, Bryan, we're talking about leverage. How do you leverage your time? Side note, I mean, all jokes aside, how, like I think of Elon Musk. Whether you like the guy or not, this is not a political thing. You're right, guys. So don't get your panties in the water if you don't like the guy.
Right.
But I often wonder, how are you CEO of like Tesla and X and all these different companies, and how do you have time for that? I mean, that's a question that I always ask myself. How does he do it? And then I meet somebody like Bryan and Victor, where they got their hand in 5,000 different directions. How do you find the time to leverage your time to still get the job done and you win every day.
Well, every like I was mentioning, every second counts, right? So I'm always got something going on. I don't watch much TV because I don't have time. So if I'm not reading emails, I'm online studying something or putting something together. So it's just keeping yourself occupied and realizing that if I'm not working, somebody might be outworking me. So I have to prepare for the worst and we hope for the best. So that keeps me going at all times. I'm always multitasking, man, just making sure that I'm not wasting no time, man. It's like if I'm watching or listening to something, how is this benefiting me? Is this just wasting time or I'm going to use this? I'm going to need this information later.
Now
So that's
you're in your
just
young 40s, right?
for yeah, young 43, man.
Yeah, 43. That's what I thought. Born in 82. Okay. And is it safe to say that you're financially comfortable right now? Would you
Oh
consider
yeah.
yourself
Oh
wealthy
yeah.
where your assets generate more income than your expenses?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've become the asset.
That's right. So my point is that, it's all about discipline and choosing, how to invest your time. Like Brian
Hmm.
said, he don't watch TV. I stopped watching TV many years ago. So, how we invest our time every single day. We all have the same 24 hours, whether, it's Brian or me or Trump or Elon or whoever it is. It's how we utilize the time that we have, and are we investing that time in things that are going to help us get ahead in life, to benefit us and our family, and get to a point where we're wealthy, which is the definition of wealth to me is where you've got more money coming in that's working for you. The money's working for you. You're not working for the money, but the money's working for you and what you have going out. The day, whether that's 2,000 a month coming in and you got 1,900 in expenses, you're wealthy because your money is generating more money, not you, but your assets are generating more money than what your expenses are. And from there, you can just continue to build on that. And the way you do it, it all starts with education. That's where it begins, young man.
Yep.
Brian, dude, I love you, man. You're my brother. You're my
Me too,
brother, even though
brother.
you live in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Boo, Texas.
Hey, I'm from Oklahoma, man. I'm just
That's
out
right.
there. I'm
T,
down here
that's
where the
right. That's
money
right. Booker T, right? Booker
There
T,
you go.
Washington.
There
Yeah.
you
So
go.
y'all know I'm from Sand Springs. Charles Page. We hated Booker T because
Right,
Booker T
everybody
kicked our,
did.
what, every
Yeah,
year
yeah.
last.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I
All for the
appreciate you,
game.
Brian. Thank you for all
Yes,
that you
sir.
do. And, man, just such a pleasure. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to do it again next Friday, 4 p.m. Central Time. Y'all know what time it is. We'll have another special guest. I already got somebody lined up, but I cannot officially announce it right now. And if somebody wanted to reach out, we are going to go overtime. I got this teed up, and you asked me if I could give you at least 5 minutes to talk about it. Here we go. This is for you, Brian. This is how we're going to end today.
Okay.
Take
What we got? Oh, okay. The hot gloves. Yeah, okay. So this is an idea I had. I've been working over for at least almost 20 years. And I really kind of took off on it around 2018, as I was mentioning in the beginning before I walked away from electrical work. But now here, hopefully within the next 12 months, we will be releasing this to a licensee who will be mass producing these bad boys and selling them all over the United States and possibly the world. In the electrical construction industry, we have what's been termed by OSHA as the fatal four fatalities, and that's struck by a caught between falls and electrocution. And electrocution is where I come in because there's no erase on an electrician's pencil. And a lot of times people die from electricity by touching something that they didn't know was turned on or became turned on, and it kills them. So with these gloves here, what these gloves do, they detect the voltage while somebody's probably working on something that might have been dead or didn't have no power on it when they started working. Then maybe something came on downstream and cut it on, and the gloves warn them through sound, vibration, and lights to
wow.
tell them to let it go. Danger is there. So we call it the hot gloves. So yeah, this is my baby right here,
That
and I
is
wanted to
cool,
share
man.
that
That
with
is
your
so
your
cool.
audience.
Brian, if I wanted to get in touch with you, how would I do that?
Easiest way to reach me really is email standstrongcapital@gmail.com. And just send me an email. We can kind of go from there. I do have a link tree, but I'd rather send that through to them in an email so they can see. You can follow me. I do have a YouTube channel, which is called Stand Strong, and the logo is it's a book with the dollar sign on it, black and gold. All right, if you put Stand Strong Mortgage in there, most likely it pops up because that's what they really got me in the algorithm on YouTube. And then Facebook is my name, as you see on the screen here. Just flip it around, and then yeah, that's it.
And that email address is standstrongcapital,
At gmail.com. Stand Strong
standstrongcapital at
Capital
gmail.com.
at
Guys, we've gone
gmail.com.
overtime, but I think that was worth it. Again, Bryan, thank you so much. You guys have a super awesome weekend. We'll see you again next Friday at 4 p.m. Central Time. Till then, take care. Be well, guys.
Peace and blessings.